Alright everyone, we've got to talk about Steve Stevens, of course the Cleveland Facebook Live shooter. Now, currently he's still on the run. The manhunt is now well past just Ohio and it extends to 5 different states. They still haven't caught him. Now, I would think that somebody who is that massive and perhaps stands out and they know what vehicle he was last in, I think it was a Fusion, I think they should be able to catch this dude. I'm not sure exactly why they haven't. I mean, they should have converged on him immediately. The live stream begins. Somebody had to have reported it. Somebody had to have noticed. Once again, possibly ineptitude by the local police there. I don't know. But I think the big takeaway from this is the media's reaction. Specifically, link in the description to a tweet that was made of a short clip from CNN's broadcast yesterday when this was first happening. What does CNN devolve into? You know, they can't talk about possible racial motives because of the race of the shooter, because that wouldn't be the MO of CNN. So they can't talk about that because he's obviously not a Nazi or something. He's not like a white Hispanic, so they can't talk about bigotry like they did with like Zimmerman or something like that. And it doesn't involve somebody who's ever been with the police, so, you know, it's not, oh, the blue line or of silence or whatever. So they can't talk about those. So what do they devolve into in order to get their clickbait, their sensationalism for all the soccer moms, all the people that get easily offended and easily intrigued by this sort of stuff when they're watching the broadcast? You know, let alone there are all sorts of people killed every single day in the world, but this one takes on a new meaning to CNN, I guess, because it was streamed. What do they devolve into? Oh, it's like a violent video game. It's like a first-person shooter the way he's recording it. And so they start spouting off about like video games, like, oh yeah, your kid played Call of Duty or Fallout or something like that. Now they're going to go on a sadistic killing spree. Now, I think the opposite is actually true. There is no evidence whatsoever, and never has been, to suggest that violent video games cause violent crime. In fact, the opposite may very well be true. There is some evidence to suggest that the opposite happens. It's actually cathartic and keeps people from committing acts of violence. The fact that he happened to be recording it in front of him like a first-person shooter doesn't mean it has anything to do with fucking video games. Facebook Live is not a video game. He was just streaming himself blowing an old man's head off. He's a psychopath. He's fucking crazy. Apparently this has something to do with an ex-girlfriend. It's part of some weird revenge plot. How does this have anything to do with video games? They've been harping on this since video games were in their infancy. They were talking about this back when people were playing like Super Mario and Legend of Zelda. They were talking about this, N64 comes along and stuff like that. And they're talking about like, oh, James Bond 007, look at how realistic the blood is. Look at how realistic the shooting and the violence is. Whoa, it's so much like real life. Those graphics, you know, the potato graphics, they're just so fucking great. And so this is going to cause violence. And it never happened. Actually, it was around the time, coincidentally, and it probably is a coincidence, around the time that sort of the first-person shooter era of gaming begins, we have a massive drop in our violent crime rate. And it continues, now it's leveled out, I guess because graphical capabilities have sort of hit a long-term peak for a while here, or something like that, till we get like true virtual reality or something. Coincidentally speaking, though, it's around that era, like late 90s and stuff, when you get the first kind of true 3D first-person shooters. You know, they're still primitive compared to what we have now, but, you know, the first true ones. That's around the time that the crime rate starts dropping in this country. All they can do is talk about violent video games. They don't get their Nazi fix. They don't get their literally Hitler fix. If this were somebody who were white and blew somebody's head off on Facebook Live, what do you think they would immediately speculate the motive had to do with? Do you think they would say, here, oh, he's crazy? No, they wouldn't use crazy. He's, you know, it's part of a revenge plot against his girlfriend. No, they're not intelligent enough to even dream something like that up. They would immediately say, oh, is this person connected to any far-right groups? Is he a member of Aryan Nation or the Ku Klux Klan or something like that? You know, even if the person shot was white, honestly. They'd still do that. But because they're deprived of that side of the clickbait, they had to invent something on the spot in order to push this story to get people to tune in. Get all the easily offended people tuned in. about what ultimately is still a heinous act, and intriguing because it was streamed live on Facebook, like that hanging the video months ago that Facebook left up for so long. Yeah, and they left this one up for a few extra hours too, then they finally took it down. Oh yeah, it breaches our terms of service when somebody is live streaming themselves murdering another individual. But it took us a couple hours to fucking figure that out, of course. Yeah, thanks, Farcebook. What a fucking great company you are. Anyway, they were deprived of that clickbait because the shooter couldn't be immediately classified as like a bitter Nazi or something like that. So what do? Oh, no. Violent video games probably caused this. It's like a first-person shooter. Obviously, he was influenced by Mass Effect Andromeda. That's why he makes weird faces, too. That's what this is their so-called logic. This is the stupidity of the legacy media. This is a group. This is CNN. Supposedly, they're like, we've got all the credentials and all the journalism and stuff. We're such an upstanding company, not like the fake news alt media, not like all these idiots on YouTube or something like that. What do? Oh, violent video games have something to do with the Cleveland shooting. You know, the victim's still, his body's not even cold. They're already speculating about how video games probably caused this. I know that's not their direct intonation within this clip, but it's pretty close to it. When you're mentioning this sort of thing, it fits in with the media narrative that video games that involve anything other than like Pikmin level violence or something, that somehow that's going to cause somebody to go helter-skelter mode. And it's just not true. Like, the opposite is probably true. In scientific literature on the subject, it appears that it's more of a cathartic than anything else. It's not encouraging violence. But they had to go after somebody. They couldn't use a race as motive, so they had to get some other clickbait. They really scraped the bottom of the barrel with this one. That's about all. Peace out.